Kesari had never seen a human bleed before. In 3 hours, that would change everything she believed about the universe. The diplomatic chamber on Palax. 7 smelled like recycled air and fear. 18 months of war between humanity and the Dravathi hegemony had killed millions on both sides. Now, representatives from both species sat across a stone table, pretending they did not want to tear each other apart. Kesari watched from her designated seat along the observation wall. She was Fenari, a small fox-like species known throughout the galaxy for strict neutrality. Her people had been chosen as witnesses, along with 2 others. The Galactic Concord required 3 neutral observers for any major peace negotiation. It was an old law, meant to ensure honesty. Beside her sat Yum, a Gorvathi. His stone-like skin was gray and cracked with age. The Gorvathi were an ancient race, slow-moving but wise. They had seen empires rise and fall. Yum had lived for over 800 years. He watched the proceedings with tired eyes that had witnessed too many wars. On her other side was Syl, a Tesserine. The insectoid diplomat held perfectly still, her compound eyes tracking every movement in the room. Tesserines were logical to the point of coldness. They processed the world through mathematics and probability. Syl was already calculating the odds of this peace lasting. The human delegation sat on the left side of the table. Ambassador Lyra Okonkwo led them, a tall woman with silver hair and steady hands. Behind her stood 4 guards in simple gray uniforms. One of them caught Kesari's attention. Sergeant David Webb was not the largest human. He was not the most decorated, but something about him felt different. He stood slightly forward of the other guards, his eyes never resting on one spot for long. He watched the Dravathi the way a hunting animal watches prey, or perhaps the way a parent watches for danger near their child. The Dravathi sat on the right. High Commander Drenth led their group, his scales a deep purple that marked royal blood. He was a warrior who had personally killed humans in battle. His hatred was not hidden. Every word he spoke to Ambassador Okonkwo dripped with barely controlled rage. "Your kind burned Thessar 4, Drenth said. 40 million of my people, gone in nuclear fire. Your fleet destroyed Brennan's reach." Okonkwo replied calmly. 40,000 humans. Civilians. Children. You started this war. You invaded our colony without warning. Kesari felt her fur stand on end. This was not going well. The hatred between these 2 species was a living thing in the room. She glanced at Yum, but the old Gorvathi simply watched with ancient patience. Syl leaned close to Kesari. "Probability of successful negotiation has dropped to 31%, she whispered. High Commander Drenth's stress indicators suggest he may abandon talks within the hour. Kesari did not respond. She was watching Sergeant Webb. The human guard had shifted his position slightly. His eyes were locked on a young Dravathi officer standing behind Drenth. The officer's name was Vorin, according to the briefing documents. He was the nephew of a general killed in the human counterattack at Thessar. Something was wrong. Kesari could feel it. Her species had evolved as prey animals on a dangerous world. They had survived by sensing threats before they struck. Every instinct she had was screaming now. "Perhaps we should take a recess," Ambassador Okonkwo suggested. "Emotions are high. We could resume in the morning with clearer heads." "No, Dren Grolith. I want this finished. Sign the preliminary ceasefire now, and we can discuss the details of withdrawal." There was a moment of silence. Then Okonkwo nodded slowly. "Very well. If that is what it takes to begin healing, I will sign." She stood and walked toward the center table where the document waited. A simple piece of paper that could end 18 months of death. Her guards remained in position, as protocol demanded. All except Webb. He took one step forward. Kesari saw it happen in fragments. Vor moved. His arm came up. Metal flashed in the artificial light. A blade, thin and impossibly sharp, left his hand and flew toward the ambassador's throat. A Dravathi honor blade. Kesari had read about them. Molecularly sharpened, capable of cutting through personal shields. Designed for assassination. For murder that could not be stopped. Yum began to rise, but his ancient body was too slow. Syl calculated trajectories in a fraction of a second and determined that intervention was mathematically impossible. Kesari froze, her prey instincts locking her muscles in place. Ambassador Okonkwo did not see death coming for her. But David Webb was already moving. He crossed 3 meters in the time it took Kesari's heart to beat once. His hand shot out, not toward the ambassador, but toward the blade itself. His fingers closed around the handle just as it reached Okonkwo's neck. The room stopped. Webb stood there, arm extended, holding a blade that should have killed the ambassador. Blood ran down his palm where the edge had cut deep into his flesh. It dripped onto the stone floor in the absolute silence. Kesari stared at the human, at the blood, at the impossible thing she had just witnessed. In 800 years, Yum had never seen anything move that fast. Syl's calculations crashed and restarted, unable to process what her eyes had recorded. And in that frozen moment, with blood falling like red rain, Kesari understood something that would change the galaxy forever. Humans were not what anyone thought they were. Not even close. 3 aliens witnessed the same impossible moment. Each one saw something different. That Kesari's world had become slow and sharp. Her Fenari biology flooded her system with chemicals designed to help her escape predators. Time stretched like pulled glass. She could see every detail with painful clarity. The blade hung in the air. No, that was wrong. It was moving, just slowly in her enhanced perception. Voran's arm was still extended from the throw. Ambassador Okonkwo was turning her head, beginning to sense that something was wrong. The other human guards were reaching for weapons they would never draw in time. And David Webb was a blur. Kesari had seen humans before. They seemed soft, slow. Her species could outrun them easily. They had no claws, no fangs, no armor. The galactic community had classified them as mid-tier predators at best. Dangerous in groups, weak alone. That classification was a lie. Webb moved like nothing Kesari had ever seen. His body seemed to ignore what should be possible. Muscles fired in perfect sequence. His feet barely touched the ground. 3 meters of distance vanished as if space itself had folded to let him pass. His hand reached for the blade. Kesari wanted to close her eyes. She knew what would happen. The honor blade would cut through his fingers. Blood would spray. The ambassador would die anyway. This was a noble but futile gesture from a creature who did not understand Dravathi weapons. Webb's fingers closed around the handle. The blade stopped. Kesari felt something crack inside her understanding of the universe. Yum saw the moment differently. The ancient Gorvathi had witnessed wars that lasted centuries. He had seen species rise from nothing and fall to extinction. His people measured time in generations, not years. When the blade flew, Yum knew he could not stop it. His body was too old, too slow. Stone-skinned Gorvathi were powerful, but they moved like mountains. By the time he reached the ambassador, she would already be dead. He began to stand anyway. Some gestures mattered, even when they failed. Then the human moved. Yum felt the air displacement wash over his stone face. A pressure wave, like a small explosion. The human crossed the room so fast that he left a wake of disturbed air behind him. In 800 years, Yum had met exactly one species capable of such speed. The Vrex, a race of pure predators that had been hunted to extinction for being too dangerous to exist. They had moved like that, like death given form. But the Vrex had been monsters. They killed without thought, without mercy. When one of them moved that fast, blood always followed. Webb caught the blade and stopped. He did not attack. He did not kill. He simply stood there, bleeding, protecting. Yum sat back down slowly. His ancient heart was beating faster than it had in decades. He had just watched a human reveal something that the galaxy had forgotten. Something important. There were predators who killed because they loved death. And there were predators who killed only to protect life. The humans were the second kind. Syl processed the event through pure mathematics. Her Tesserine brain ran 17 simultaneous calculations in the first millisecond of Voran's attack. Blade velocity, 43 meters per second. Distance to target, 4.2 meters. Time to impact, approximately 1/10 of a second. Human reaction time, Documented average 0.2 of a second. Conclusion. Intervention impossible. She had already begun composing her witness report in her mind. Ambassador Okonkwo would die. The peace talks would collapse. War would continue. Probability of human extinction within 50 years would rise to 67%. Then her calculations broke. Webb moved at time 0.03 seconds. Before the blade had traveled even 2 meters. Before any normal nervous system could have processed the visual information and sent signals to muscles that he was not reacting. He was predicting the Sill's compound eyes tracked him across the room. She measured his speed at 11 meters per second, faster than any human she had ever recorded. His hand intercepted the blade at time 0.097 seconds. Margin of error, 3 millimeters from the ambassador's throat. This was not possible. Her data was wrong. Something was wrong. She ran the calculations again. Same result. She checked her visual recordings. They matched her numbers. David Webb had done something that her entire species' understanding of human biology said could not be done. Sill felt an emotion that Tesserines rarely experienced. Uncertainty. For the first time in her career as a diplomat, she did not know what would happen next. The silence in the room stretched for 3 seconds. It felt like 3 years. Blood dripped from Webb's hand onto the floor. The sound was impossibly loud. Drop, drop, drop. Like a clock counting down to something. Vorin was screaming. Kesari could hear the words now as time returned to normal speed. The peace is a lie. They will betray us. They burned our worlds. Nobody moved. Webb stood between the assassin and the ambassador, holding a blade covered in his own blood. His face showed no anger, no fear, just calm focus, like a man who had done this before. High Commander Drent stared at the human with an expression Kesari had never seen on a Dravathi face. It was fear, but it was also something else. Something that looked almost like respect. Guards, Drent said quietly. Take Vorin into custody. Vorin kept screaming as they dragged him away. But his screams did not matter anymore. The moment had already changed everything. Webb looked down at the blade in his bloody hand. Then he did something that none of the 3 alien witnesses expected. He walked toward the Dravathi High Commander and placed the weapon gently on the floor between them. This changes nothing, Webb said. His voice was steady. We're still here to talk. And in that moment, Kesari understood that the war was already over. The humans had won it with mercy instead of murder. The obsidian chamber felt different when the council reconvened. The casual posturing was gone. The displays of dominance had ceased. 12 apex predators sat in their ancestral seats and looked at the small human woman with something none of them had expected to feel. Respect. Garath spoke first. His voice was steady, measured, nothing like the boastful young warrior who had mocked humanity an hour before. The Thornback Dominion votes to grant humanity protected species status. Not out of fear, though we have learned fear today. Out of respect for a fellow predator. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Predator. No one had called humans that before. Drell raised one ancient limb. I propose a different motion. Protected species status is given to those who cannot defend themselves. After what we have witnessed, I move that humanity be classified not as protected, but as an apex predator species, with full Dominion membership. Silence. That has not happened in 300 years, Yenna said. No species has earned it in 300 years. Drell replied point one by one. The council members voted. The Vashri, their hunting pheromones finally calm, voted in favor. The Makari, with their ancient wisdom, supported the motion. Species after species agreed, until only Rannoch remained. The senior arbiter looked at Dr. Osei. You came here expecting us to deny your petition. You came prepared to show us why war with humanity would be a mistake. Yes, you did not expect to be named equals. Dr. Osei's expression did not change, but something shifted in her eyes. No, we did not. Why not? You knew what you were showing us. You knew the effect it would have. The human was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of everything she had witnessed in her long career. Because we have spent our entire history being underestimated. By our own predators, by our environment, by each other. We learned to survive by assuming the worst and preparing for it. We did not dare hope for acceptance. Rannoch nodded slowly. Then hear this, Dr. Amara Osei of Earth. The crash in hegemony votes in favor. Humanity is hereby recognized as the 13th apex predator species of the Dominion Council. It was done. Dr. Osei stood alone in the center of the chamber, surrounded by the most dangerous beings in the known galaxy. And for just a moment, her professional mask slipped. Just a fraction, just enough to show the human underneath. I would like to speak, she said, if the Council permits. The Council recognizes its newest member. Humanity did not come here to threaten you. We came to be understood. She looked at each predator in turn. We have shown you our capacity for violence, our willingness to destroy ourselves rather than surrender, our refusal to submit no matter the cost. But that is not all we are. She paused. We are also the species that built hospitals in war zones, that formed treaties with enemies who had slaughtered our families, that reached for the stars not to conquer, but to explore. We contain multitudes. The violence you witness today is matched by compassion, by creativity, by a desperate hope that we can be better than our history suggests. We do not want war with the Dominion. We want trade, alliance, friendship, if such a thing is possible between species so different. We have spent long enough fighting ourselves. We would prefer to spend the next chapter of our history building something worthwhile. The Silith observer spoke from the shadows. And if peace proves impossible, Dr. Osei met those impossible eyes without flinching. Then we will fight, as we have always fought, until we win or cease to exist. There is no third option for humanity. I believe you, the Silith whispered. I believe every word. The chamber began to empty. Predators filed out in silence, each processing what they had learned. Rannoch lingered, watching the human prepare to transmit the results to Earth. Your species will receive the news within hours, he said. Full membership, access to Dominion trade routes, technology exchanges, diplomatic recognition. Everything you came here hoping might be possible. Yes. How will your people react? Dr. Osei allowed herself a small smile. The first genuine emotion she had shown all day. They will be relieved. And then they will immediately start planning for the possibility that this is all a trap. It is how we think. We are alike in that way. Perhaps that is why this worked. Predators understand other predators. She finished her transmission and gathered her device. The chamber was nearly empty now, the bones on the walls watching with hollow eyes. Dr. Osei, Rannoch said as she turned to leave. The mother in the footage. The one who tried to shield her child. You knew her, did you not? The human stopped. Her back straightened. When she spoke, her voice was barely audible. She was my grandmother's sister. The child was my grandmother. She survived the initial blast. The radiation took her 40 years later, but she lived long enough to have children. And those children had me. I see. That is what we are, Dr. Osei said. We survive. We endure. We remember everything. She looked back at him one final time. Welcome to humanity, Arbiter. I hope the universe is ready for what comes next. She walked out of the obsidian chamber, leaving Rannoch alone with the bones of extinct species and the weight of what the Dominion had just welcomed into their ranks. In the shadows, the Silith observer filed its report with a single recommendation. Not provoke them. They remember everything. The transmission reached Earth 6 hours later. Humanity celebrated briefly and then went back to preparing for war, just in case. 40 light years away, the Fenari Collective received Kesari's preliminary report. The council chamber erupted into chaos within seconds of reading it. Impossible, declared Elder Nos, her gray fur standing on end. No species moves that fast. The human must have known about the attack beforehand. The report includes visual recordings, the communications officer replied. All three observers confirmed the same sequence of events. The human reacted before his nervous system should have been able to process the threat. Then their nervous systems work differently than we assumed. That is precisely the problem, Elder. The Fenari had survived for millennia by understanding predators. They knew the hunting patterns of every dangerous species in the galaxy. They had cataloged strengths, weaknesses, reaction times. This knowledge kept them alive. Now that knowledge was worthless, that if humans could do this, what else could they do? Across the galaxy, the Gorvathi Stone Council gathered in a chamber carved from living mountain. Yum's report had arrived hours ago. The eldest among them, a being so old that his stone skin had begun to crack and crumble, spoke first. Young Yum believes the humans are protectors, not predators, the Ancient One said. He compares them to the Vrex, but says they are different. Different how? Asked another council member. The Vrex kill because it pleased them. The humans kill only when they must, and they can choose not to kill even when their laws permit it. That makes them unpredictable. No, the eldest shook his massive head. That makes them valuable. A species that can fight like the Vrex, but choose mercy like the Fenari? Such beings could be the greatest allies in the galaxy, or the most dangerous enemies. Then we must ensure they become allies. Indeed, send a message to our ambassadors. We will begin formal friendship negotiations with humanity. Immediately, in the crystalline towers of the Tesserine homeworld, Syl's analysis caused a different kind of reaction. The logic assembly processed her data 17 times. Each calculation returned the same result. Human combat capabilities had been underestimated by a factor of 4. This changes our threat assessments significantly, the Prime Calculator announced. Humanity was classified as a Tier 3 military power. This data suggests Tier 1 status may be appropriate. Should we recommend defensive preparations? No. The Prime Calculator's compound eyes focused on the key detail in Syl's report. Note Observer Syl's conclusion. The human had clear opportunity to kill both the assassin and multiple Dravathi guards. He chose restraint. A Tier 1 military power that exercises restraint is not a threat. It is an opportunity. Explain. The humans could have used this incident to collapse the peace talks and justify continued war. Instead, their soldier chose mercy. Their ambassador chose to continue negotiations. This suggests their species prioritizes peace over conquest. That seems illogical for a predator species. Yes, which means our understanding of predator psychology is incomplete. Recommend expanded study of human social bonding behaviors. Their choices suggest they fight for connections, not territory. On Palax 7, David Webb sat alone in his quarters. His hand throbbed beneath fresh bandages. The doctor had offered pain medication. He had refused that a knock came at his door. Ambassador Okonkwo entered without waiting for permission. "You should be resting," Webb said. "So should you." She sat across from him. "The talks resume tomorrow. High Commander Drenth has agreed to a full ceasefire while terms are negotiated. It seems your little stunt made an impression." "It was not a stunt." "I know." Okonkwo studied his face. "David, what you did was beyond anything I have ever seen." "How did you know? How did you move so fast?" Webb was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled out a small photograph from his chest pocket. A little girl with dark braids smiled at the camera. She was missing her 2 front teeth. "My daughter," Webb said. "Amara. She is 7 years old. She lives on Earth with her mother." Okonkwo looked at the photograph. "She is beautiful. When that blade flew, I did not see you." Webb's voice became distant. "I saw her. I saw what would happen if the peace failed. More war. More death. Eventually, the fighting would reach Earth. It would reach her." He tucked the photograph away. "I did not think about catching the blade. I just knew that it could not be allowed to hit you. Because if it did, my daughter's world would burn. And I would do anything to prevent that. Anything." Okonkwo reached out and touched his bandaged hand gently. "The galaxy is watching us now," she said. 3 neutral species saw what you did. Their reports are already spreading. Within a month, every civilization in known space will know that a human caught death with his bare hands and chose mercy. Is that good or bad? I do not know yet." Okonkwo stood to leave. "But I suspect it will change everything." After she left, Webb looked at his hand. Blood had seeped through the bandages again. The wound would scar badly. He would carry the mark of this day for the rest of his life. "Good," Some moments deserve to be remembered in flesh and bone. Some moments changed history, and David Webb had just created one of them. The argument had lasted 4 hours. Kesari's throat was raw from talking. Her patience was completely gone. "You cannot say that in the official statement," she said for the 20th time. "You will cause panic across 50 systems." Sill's antennae twitched with irritation. "I'm stating facts. Human combat capabilities exceed documented parameters by significant margins. The galaxy deserves accurate threat assessments." "Threat assessments?" Kesari's fur bristled. "You watched the same event I did. The human saved a life. He showed mercy to his enemy. How is that a threat? A species capable of such physical feats could easily weaponize those abilities. The logical response is defensive preparation. The logical response is friendship," Yum said quietly from his corner. "My people have already begun outreach to humanity. The Gorvathi recognize what we witnessed." "And what exactly did you witness, Old One?" Sill asked. "Because my visual recordings show a human moving faster than biological law permits. I witnessed choice." Yum rose slowly, his stone body grinding. "I have seen predators for 8 centuries. The Vrex killed because killing brought them joy. The Krell killed because they saw other species as food. Every dangerous race I have encountered killed because they wanted to." He moved closer to the window. Outside, the peace negotiations continued. Humans and Dravathi sat across from each other, talking quietly. No weapons drawn. No threats made. The human did not want to kill, Yum continued. He could have. His speed would have allowed him to cut down every Dravathi in that room before they could react. Instead, he chose to bleed. "Bleeding does not indicate peaceful intentions," Sill said. "It indicates that he miscalculated the blade's edge." "He calculated perfectly." Kesari stepped between them. "I watched his eyes. He knew exactly where that blade would cut him. He accepted the wound because catching it by the handle was the only way to stop it without killing someone." Sill went still. "That is a significant detail I had not fully processed." "Then process it now." Kesari's voice was firm. "We are about to tell the galaxy what we saw. Our words will shape how dozens of species view humanity. We can make them afraid, or we can help them understand." The 3 observers stood in silence. Finally, Sill spoke again. "What do you propose we say?" "The truth." Yum sat back down. "But the complete truth. Not just what the human did, but why he did it. Not just his speed, but his restraint. Not just his power, but his choice to use it for protection." "That requires interpretation," Sill said. "Tessarines do not interpret. We report facts." "Then your species has been missing half of reality for a very long time." Sill's compound eyes flickered. For a Tessarine, that was equivalent to stunned silence. Kesari sat down and pulled out her data tablet. "Let me draft something. We can all review it before the broadcast." For the next 2 hours, they worked together. 3 species who had never collaborated before. 3 perspectives that should have been incompatible. But somehow, they found common ground. Kesari wrote about fear transforming into awe, about watching something impossible and realizing that impossible was just another word for beyond current understanding. Yum added context from his centuries of experience. He compared humanity to ancient races, but noted crucial differences. The humans had power. They also had wisdom about when not to use it. Sill contributed data, but for the first time, she also contributed analysis that went beyond numbers. She wrote about probabilities, but also about the probability of peace being higher when one side demonstrates willingness to sacrifice for it. When they finished, Kesari read the statement aloud. "Today, we witnessed an act that will reshape galactic understanding of humanity. A single human soldier demonstrated physical capabilities beyond our documented expectations. But more importantly, he demonstrated something we had not thought to measure." She continued reading. "He demonstrated that humanity's greatest strength is not their speed or their reflexes. It is their capacity to choose mercy when violence would be easier. It is their willingness to bleed so that others do not have to die." Yum nodded slowly. Sill's antennae were still for the first time in hours. The war between humanity and the Dravathi hegemony may soon end, Kesari read. But we believe a larger war has already been decided. The war over what kind of species humanity truly is. Today, one human answered that question with blood and mercy and impossible speed. She set down the tablet. Is this acceptable to both of you? Yum placed his massive stone hand over his heart. It is truth. I will stand behind it. Sil processed for several seconds. Then her wings clicked in what Kesari had learned was Tesserine approval. It is accurate. I will confirm it with my data. Kesari felt something loosen in her chest. For the first time since watching that blade fly, she felt like things might actually be okay. Tomorrow, they would broadcast this statement to the galaxy. Tomorrow, everything would change, but tonight, 3 aliens who had started as strangers sat together in comfortable silence. United by what they had witnessed, they had watched a human stop death with his bare hands. And they had seen the true face of humanity in the blood he chose to spill. The broadcast chamber was smaller than Kesari had expected. 3 chairs faced a single camera. Beyond the lens, 94 inhabited worlds waited to hear what they had witnessed. Kesari sat in the center. Yum's massive form occupied a reinforced seat on her left. Sil stood perfectly still on her right, her insectoid body requiring no rest. Broadcasting in 30 seconds, the technician announced. Kesari felt her heart racing. Her species had survived by staying hidden. Drawing attention was dangerous. Every instinct told her to run, to find a dark corner and disappear. She stayed. Some moments demanded courage. The red light on the camera turned on. Kesari began to speak. My name is Kesari of the Finari Collective. I am joined by Yum of the Gorvathi Stone Council and Sil of the Tesserine Logic Assembly. We were designated as neutral observers for the peace negotiations between humanity and the Dravathi hegemony. She paused to steady her voice. 2 days ago, we witnessed an event that we believe the galaxy must understand. Kesari described the moment. The blade flying, the ambassador defenseless, the impossible movement of a human soldier. Then she spoke her part of their prepared statement. I am Finari. My people have survived by understanding predators. We study them. We learn their patterns. We stay alive by knowing what dangerous species will do. 2 days ago, I watched a human do something I could not predict. He caught death with his bare hands, and then he let his enemy live. Her voice grew stronger. I was afraid of what I saw. I'm still afraid. Humans are more capable than any of us realized. But I have come to understand that their power is not what defines them. Their choices define them. And the human I watched chose protection over violence. He chose mercy over revenge. Kesari stepped back. Yum leaned forward, his ancient voice filling the chamber. I am Yum. I have lived for over 800 years. I have witnessed the rise and fall of empires. I have seen species destroy themselves with war and hatred. The old Gorvathi's stone face softened. In all that time, I have learned one truth. True strength is not measured by how easily a being can kill. It is measured by how easily they choose not to. The human who stopped that blade possessed enough speed to kill everyone in that room. He chose to bleed instead. Yum raised one massive hand. My people have a word for such beings. We call them guardians. For 10,000 years, we believed that guardians were legend, myth, a story we told our children about protectors who would sacrifice themselves for others. 2 days ago, I watched a human prove that guardians are real. He lowered his hand and fell silent. Sil stepped forward. Her compound eyes reflected the camera light. I am Sil. My species processes reality through mathematics. We measure. We calculate. We determine truth through data. When the blade flew toward Ambassador Okonkwo, I calculated the probability of intervention. It was 0. The human should not have been able to reach her in time. Her antennae twitched. My calculations failed because I measured the wrong variables. I measured speed. I measured distance. I measured reaction time. I did not measure will. I did not measure the determination of a being who had decided that another person would not die. Sil's voice became almost warm. My data has been updated. My understanding of humanity has been corrected. They are not simply a species of average predators who stumbled into space travel. They are something our equations did not account for. They are beings who fight not because they love war, but because they love what war threatens. Their homes, their families, their future. She paused. In that moment, one human proved something I will carry in my calculations forever. Mercy can be stronger than murder, and those who choose it deserve our respect. The camera held on all three of them. Kesari spoke the final words. The war between humanity and the Dravathi hegemony is ending. Treaties are being signed. Peace is possible. But we believe the true victory happened in a single moment, when a single human caught a blade meant to kill and chose to let his blood fall instead of his enemy. She looked directly into the camera. In that moment, the war was over, because humanity showed the galaxy who they really are. The red light turned off. 1 year later, David Webb stood in his backyard on Earth. His daughter Amara was playing with the family dog, laughing as the animal chased her across the grass. The scar on his palm was pale now. It would never fully heal. He did not mind that a delivery drone descended from the sky and deposited a package at his feet. The return address was from Dravathi Space. Webb opened it carefully. Inside was the honor blade, the same one he had caught a year ago. It had been reforged, the metal polished to a mirror shine. The handle was wrapped in new leather. An inscription had been carved into the flat of the blade. Webb read it slowly. To the one who caught death and chose mercy. May your hands never grow tired. May your choices always bring peace. From High Commander Drenth of the Dravathi hegemony. Webb held the blade up to the sunlight. It gleamed. Behind him, Amara was still laughing. The sound was the most beautiful thing he had ever heard. The war was over. Not because humanity had proven they could fight, because one human had proven they could stop, and that had made all the difference.